Good morning, everyone. Okay na bang audio ko? Is my audio okay? Kindly type in the chat box if it's okay. Say yes. Okay. So while waiting for your response, I hope my audio is okay. This is our second virtual meet. And let me go directly so that we'll not waste our time. This will be the flow of our virtual meeting. First, I'm going to have a recap of lesson 1, which is all about basic concepts. Then, after the recap, there will be a presentation of outputs. Meron akong na-request who can present today. Then, after that, we'll give around 5 minutes for the Q&A or question and answer portion. Then, after that, we'll move to lesson 2. Again, I will do the recap of lesson 2, which talks about principles of high quality assessment. And we are going also to have a short presentation on the output of lesson 2, then a Q&A. Okay, then we'll talk about also other matters. Right, so wala pang nag-type yes regarding my audio. So I hope it's okay. Now, during the presentation, meron tayong mga guests na, as I've mentioned, meron mga presenters tayo later on. Right, so naka-standby yung mga presenters. So you will see them later on. Now, for the basic concepts, if you remember in our text, in our resources, we have discussed these 3 terms, no? Measurement, assessment, and evaluation. Although I have read some of your responses in the discussion boards and even in your reflections and your answers also to the scenario, no? Which is the application of these 3 concepts. So at least nandoon yung mga ideas, no, with regards to measurement, assessment, and evaluation. Now, let's try to look into, no, quickly the concepts, no. Ano ba talaga ang measurement? Just give me the keywords. You can type in the chat box, ano ba ang measurement? Based doon sa atong resources. Based on our resources. Anyone? Please, I'll give extra points. Yung maka-answer, who can give me the answer. First 5. First 5. What is measurement? Keywords lang, keywords. You don't have to write in a sentence, no? Just keywords. Diba? You can see there, mayroon siyang mga keywords doon. Anybody? Let me see. Wala nag-type sa screen. Okay. Somebody mentioned test. Si Ma'am Asnima kanina, then Ma'am Gina said quantity. Ma'am Jessany, test. Okay. Test refers to the instrument, diba? Then quantity, tama yon, no? So when you talk about measurement, measurement says it's a process of determining the quantity of achievement. So quantity, no? Quantity talks about size, no? Or it answers the question, how many are achieving in your class, no? With regards to the proficiency level of your students. And then the instrument, make use of appropriate instruments. The instrument refers to your test. Tama yun, test. Right? So, if you remember those, when you were in elementary, usually when I was a teacher in elementary, I usually get how many students really answered, no, the checkpoints or the quiz at the end of the lesson, no. I don't know if you still remember that one. Yung teacher will always ask you how many of you get. If you have 4-item test, the teacher would ask you how many of you get 4, diba? Raise your hand. 3, raise your hand. 2, raise your hand. Diba? Then the teacher is counting how many, right? So here we're trying to look into how many of our students actually achieving, no, the proficiency level. So it goes with the measurement. So measurement determines the quantity of achievement using appropriate instruments. So there are 2 keywords in that. Then we talk also about the types of measurement. No, meron tayong objective at saka subjective. I think you can differentiate with these 2, no, use based on the example on in terms of the instruments you're gonna use. Now, for objective measurement, make use of objective test. Subjective measurement makes use of subjective test. No, so one good example for objective test, multiple choice test. Yan naman sa subjective essay. Yung essay tests are usually subjective, right? Because when you say subjective, the answers of your students rely on their perspective or perception. Other than the comparing it to the objective, pag answer is A, talagang yun ang answer, right? So it does not rely on the perception or perspective of the test taker. So we also talk about assessment here. Ano bang assessment? Oh, keywords for assessment. Type sa chat box. May record ako ha sa nag-answer kanina. So yung first 5, bigyan ko ng extra points. O yung nag-answer lahat, bigyan natin ng extra points. Alright. Yes, noted, Ma'am Juhaira. Okay, answer. What is assessment? Keywords lang, keywords. Yes, gather information. Thanks, Ma'am Nelmi. Gather information. Anong information ba i-gather? Okay, test information. It's been supported by Ma'am Rose Needs. Test information talks about estimation. All right. The information is talks about performance, activities, right? Okay. Apa ba? Estimation. All right. Now, if you remember the different descriptions of our assessment, yung sinabi doon sa first bullet, if you remember, it's an ongoing process, no? Ongoing process aimed at understanding and improving student learning. So, there should be improvement, no? Kung walang improvement, then you have to question with regards to your assessment. Now, I'd like to anchor my description on assessment on the context that it says it's a process by which, sinabi nyo kanina, information is obtained relative to your objective or goal. So meaning, the question is, why do we do assessment? We do assessment because we have our objective. So the objective now is described in your learning competencies. So, sabi natin, known objective, meaning this is now connected to the first principle of high quality assessment, which is clarity of learning targets. Because you cannot have accurate assessments kung yung learning targets mo are not stated clearly. Importante yun, okay? So the information you obtained is based on your learning objective, okay, or goals. So dapat connected siya, okay? Then we also talk about the purposes of assessment, di ba? Meron tayong tatlo. Assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning. When we talk about assessment for learning, this pertains to formative assessments. Okay? Kasi sabi natin ongoing, no? It's an ongoing process. So basically, here comes the formative assessment. That's one purpose of your assessment. Assessment for learning. Then assessment as learning refers to self-learning. I mean self-assessment. This is done by the students. So if you remember, you have your reflections. No, you write your reflections in your wikis, right? That's part of assessment as learning. So meron kayong metacognition, no? The involvement of metacognition, that's learning about learning, no? So you try to reflect on your learnings. That's part of self-assessment or assessment as learning. Then the assessment of learning pertains to summative assessments. One good example of summative assessment is your term exams, periodical tests, because these are end unit, no, tests. Okay, so I hope you were able to differentiate those three, no. Then we'll talk about also roles of assessment. So meron siyang mga roles, no, right? Like diagnostics, formative, summative, placement. And I think this was described in your resources. Ano ba yung diagnostic, formative, at saka summative, and placement, no? These are different roles of assessment. Then, we'll also talk about evaluation. Ano bang evaluation? Okay, just type again, keywords. First 5 keywords for evaluation. What is evaluation? Okay, testing, progress is visible, determine the, okay, good, quality, judgment. Okay, you make mention of judgment, quality, determining the quality. Good, tama yun. So if you go back to the description, it says there, evaluation is the process of determining the quality or worth of achievement. So quality of achievement in terms of certain standards. Okay, so when we talk about quality, there's always a standard, no, that you have to look into. Yung parang benchmark mo yung standards. Now, if you go, you because we are now applying the concepts in the context of K to 12. So tingnan natin ano bang standards sa government, no, or sa public schools, sa Department of Education. In my time, no, usually the standard in terms of proficiency level, ano ba yung percent? Around 75%, di ba? Yung passing. 75% is the target. That is the proficiency level target. So, I could remember one of my students, tinanong ng parents, "Uy, Dong, look at your performance. Yung grades mo, 75 lang." And common response ng mga bata, they would say, "Ay, don't worry, ma, pa, because 75, yun lang kailangan ng government, no?" And that's true because the target is 75%, no? Parang naging notion siya, right? Pero when we talk about, that's we talk about the target, 75%, parang ganon that is our benchmark, no? So for instance, if you have a 50 item test, you look at the target, ano bang cut off? So based on the national target, which is 75%. So if you have a 50 item test, multiply it by 75%, that is now your cutoff, right? So for example, 10 item test, that's 7 or 8. That's the cutoff score. So if students meet the target, then nasa 75 lang. So they meet the target only. But if they go beyond, let's say perfect score siya, that's above the target. So the performance is very high with regards to that. So if you group your students in your class, let's say you have 40 students or 40 pupils in your class, how much is the performance or what is the performance level of your students with regards to the national target or yung benchmark niyo? Okay? So go back to the assessment. Go back to the measurement, which is the quantity, how many. Tapos tingnan natin kung yung number of students passing the cutoff score na meet ba yung standard or wala. So this is where evaluation comes in, because in my experience, I always put a graph, no, at the end of my lesson plan. Yung lesson plan ko will give me, yung graph ko will give me the idea or decision, no, it's my instructional decision whether I have to go back to my lesson or pursue to the next lesson. Let's say you have 40 pupils in your class. Based on the national target, multiply it by 75%. So there should be around 30 pupils who should pass, no, the cutoff score, meet or over, no, or above the target. So if I have around 35 students who meet the target, no, then I have to proceed to the next lesson. Hindi na ako mag-go back sa next sa current lesson. I have to proceed to the next lesson. That is now my instructional decision because I meet the target, right? However, if I only have, let's say, 15 who pass the cutoff score, then that is the time I have to reteach the lesson using different strategies. Okay? So this is where evaluation comes. Sabi niyo judgment, di ba? The judgment is your instructional decision. So whether you proceed to the next lesson or you have to reteach the current lesson. So that is why do not postpone your evaluation because the last part of your lesson plan, the second to the last part of your lesson plan is your evaluation. Diba? Um, there are basic 5 parts of the lesson plan. It starts with your objective, your subject matter, procedure, evaluation is number 4. Then you have your assignment. The evaluation part, huwag niyong i-postpone. Sometimes, kapos tayo sa time when we teach the concepts to our students and generally we postpone the evaluation. Okay, class, we'll continue this one tomorrow. Diba? Ganon. Do not do that, no? Always, that is why when we prepare our lesson, dapat smart yung preparation ng lesson, diba? Sa smart, it should be specific, measurable, attainable, result-oriented, and time-bounded. Pag sinabing time-bound, lahat ng parts ng lesson mo, naka-time yun. Right? So you have to stick to the time so that you can finish your lesson on time. Do not postpone your evaluation because the evaluation will give you your instructional decision, whether to teach the concept or teach the lesson or proceed to the next lesson. Right? So that's where evaluation comes in. No? So tama yung sinabi niya, it talks about the quality of achievement and making judgment. So judgment or your instructional decision. Right? So I hope you have able to connect now the different concepts. No? So we'll apply these different concepts in our outputs in lesson 1, right? So there will be 2 groups who will be presenting. We have representative from group 1 and from group 4, right? So naka-ready na sila, no? And then if you have any questions, you can still type the questions in the chat box, right? So I'll give now the floor to ang first presenter natin. Please help me welcome Ma'am Christine Joy Fabe from Group 1. Tama ba, Ma'am Fabi? You're from Group 1, right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And this will be followed by Ma'am Nicole Caballo from Group 4. So, take it away, Ma'am.
Okay. Dungog, is my audio clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Clear.
Okay. So, a pleasant morning to everyone, especially to our teacher in CPE 105, Mr. Luel Lucero. Good morning, sir. I am Christine Joy Fabe of Group 1 BEd Science and Math. This morning, I will be discussing our answers in Lesson 1 through a graphic organizer. But before I present our answers in Lesson 1, please allow me to read the given scenario. Miss Castillo was assigned to teach in a remote barrio up in the mountains of Agusan del Sur. She was assigned to teach English for high school students. Her class consisted of 25 male and 30 female students coming from different elementary schools in the municipality of Bayugan. Within the first month of her teaching in the barrio, she noted that male students tended to be absent every Monday and Friday. This phenomenon caused the performance of male students in the graded English test to be lower than the female students. So this is our simple graphic organizer. So we came up with this idea since the problem somehow talks about mental abilities. So we decided to put a picture of a brain. So as you can see, we have here a brain. the brain, and outside this brain, we have numbers from 1 up to 3. Each number corresponds to the given question with our answers, of course. So let's begin. The question number 1. Were the differences in the English scores of male and female students attributable to differences in mental abilities? If no, to which you attribute these differences, support your answer. We strongly believe that the differences in the English scores between the male and female students are not attributable to the differences in their mental abilities. It has been said in the given scenario that Miss Castillo's male students tended to be absent every Monday and Friday. Hence, we attribute the said differences to absenteeism. After having a thorough discussion with my groupmates concerning this matter, we came up with absenteeism being the reason for the differences in the English test scores between the male and female students. Those male students who tended to be absent during Monday and Friday were the ones whose graded English test appeared to be lower. Let's go back to our graphic organizer. Let's click the second number. Our second question goes like this. If you were the teacher, what would you do to help improve the performance of male students? If we were Miss Castillo, we will help our male students improve their performance by giving them rewards whenever they would perfect their attendance by the end of the week. We actually came up with this idea because of B.F. Skinner, an American psychologist who believed that giving rewards would increase the likelihood that behaviors will be repeated. Also, we would do our best to determine what kind of teaching approach do male students prefer. In that way, we will be able to help them develop a heart of going to school every day to learn. For our third question, what is the relevance of measurement, assessment, and evaluation in this scenario? Measurement is about looking into the quantity of learners' achievement through an appropriate measuring instrument. In the scenario presented, we can see that Miss Castillo conducted a test on her students' performance. Meanwhile, the aspect of assessment refers to obtaining information relative to the quantity of learners' achievement. This test became a tool for measuring her students' performance. Meanwhile, the aspect of assessment refers to obtaining information relative to the learning objective. Although the learning goal was not mentioned in the scenario, it is implicitly understood that the graded English test is related to their lesson. We can say here that the assessment done was summative, just like what Sir Lucero told us a while ago. Summative assessment is to help us tell how well the students did at the end of a unit or period. The evaluation aspect is when we talk about the students' quality of achievement in terms of certain standards. In this case, male students' performance is below the standard as noted by Miss Castillo. Male students' performance in graded English test is lower than female students. There was no literal decision or judgment made by Miss Castillo in the scenario, but our implication is that she gave a low performance remark to the male students. Thank you so much for listening. That would be all for my short presentation concerning our answer. Thank you so much for listening. Keep safe and God bless.
Thank you, Ma'am Joy. That was a good presentation and very comprehensive, and that's good. That's nice. Now, we'll hear before you can start posting your questions in the chat box. Now, later on, they will also answer your questions. Now, let me proceed to Ma'am Nicole Caballo, who will be presenting also from Group 4. Ma'am Nicole, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
While Ma'am Nicole is preparing for her presentation, yeah, you can now start posting your questions in the chat box so we can address it one later on. Okay, so take away, Ma'am Nicole.
Okay, so good morning, everyone. So today I'm going to present our group work regarding the lesson one outcome. So this graphic organizer is entitled How Would It Be? It aims to arrange essential ideas regarding Miss Castillo's dilemma as a newly transferred teacher, as well as her measurement, assessment, and evaluation on that specific problem. So that specific problem was already discussed by Ms. Christine earlier. So in order for us to further understand the situation given the circumstances have been already discussed on the summary. So our group divided into three subcategories, which are the following: the possible reasons in differences of scores between male and female students. Number two, the possible procedures to improve the male students' performance. And number three, relevance of measurement, assessment, and evaluation. So now let us proceed to the first one. So we've listed variety of possible reasons of why there is a huge difference between the scores of male and female students, of which male students got poor scores. Number one is absenteeism. So absenteeism, this would be the best reason that we identified in the scenario. Male students tend to be absent in Miss Castillo's class, resulting to worst cases like unable to take quizzes or exam, or the inability to cope up with the lessons in English, which results to male students' poor performance in her class. The following would be the possible reasons of why those male students tended to be absent in Miss Castillo's class. This is supported by quantitative data. So the lack of appetite to report in class. So this would be one of the problems of a teacher. Students are naturally lazy going to school every Mondays because obviously they haven't got over the weekends, right? And Friday. It's because they know that there would be no classes on the following days, so weekends. Probably male students escape Miss Castillo's class during those days. No, Monday is the start of a new lesson, while Friday would be assessment day. And last is the gendered subject. This would be one of the reasons which could be considered as wrong due to stereotypes and biases. Next would be the possible procedure to improve male students' performance. So after gathering essential information, the process starts. In this subcategory, it discusses the possible ways of Miss Castillo on how to improve her male students' performance in her class. First, know the circumstances that the students are going through, and the teacher shall be careful with the words she used. Next, the teacher shall give an advice or suggestions, but avoid dictating the students on what to do. And the student shall make a decision whether or not to improve his or her performance. Then once the decision was made, the student shall be consistent towards improving himself, while the teacher should always be monitoring the students and keep track of their progress as well. And finally, once it was all done, it will be a win-win situation for both of them. The student has changed his behavior and improved his performance, and teacher has done her job to make the lives of her student better by guiding and bringing out the best of them. And the last category discusses about the relevance of measurement, assessment, and evaluation. For the measurement, it obviously talks about quantitative data or information that are in numbers. So Ms. Castillo presented quantitative quantitative information, which is very evident in the graphic organizer. In assessment, Ms. Castillo identified a specific problem regarding the poor performance of her male students. In this area, she used descriptive method or qualitative method of information. After qualitative data and quantitative information, a value of judgment or fair assessment should be added in order to have a conclusion regarding her dilemma. That's when evaluation enters. So all in all, measurement, assessment, and evaluation is critical as well as intrinsic method for teachers to assess their students. This is important to have an efficient learning, especially to future educators. This would help the educator have an easier way. So that's all. Thank you for listening.
Okay, thank you, Nicole. That was a very good presentation and very comprehensive also. And I think both groups were able to address now the questions correctly. First, the question is attribution with regards to the low performance of the male students. And tama yun, no? Being absent, rampant absences in the class is what we call absenteeism. You know what? This scenario is actually a true case. No, this was already resolved before. Pero totoo ito ha. This is an actual event yung scenario na yon. Now, sometimes yung assumption natin is absent sila always or during Fridays and Mondays. So maybe they become lazy or whatever, no? Yung mga assumptions natin are most likely negative. Pero I tell you what, yung mga parents actually complain to the teacher kasi yung teachers bago, di ba? New teacher siya from pang replacement sa English teacher na move or nag-retire siguro. Pero yung new teacher, this will always happen to us, especially kayo, you'll become new teachers in the public schools, probably private schools. And this may happen to you, no? So importante is, ano ba ang gagawin mo? Now, in this case, yung teacher is parang regular lang ang work, so doing assessment and so on. But na-notice niya yung mga lalaki is always absent during Fridays and Mondays. But the parents came over, nagko-complain because you know what? Yung mga maybe 2 or 3 of those male students are actually candidates for valedictorian. So naiba yung perspective natin. Candidates for valedictorian pala, di ba? So the next question is, how did the teacher before cope with this kind of probably concern, no, or issues? Kasi absence la always on Monday and Fridays. Now, the reason they're all absent because they are living in the hinterlands, and most likely male students often help, no, their parents in preparing for. Usually, di ba sa bukid, you go down to the cities to send your, for example, vegetables kung farmers sila, di ba? So they often help their parents with regards to that. But however, these are high-performing students. So dapat i-consider niyo yan. Anong gagawin mo later on, no? So before you implement your policies inside the classroom, you should conduct environmental scanning. Ano ba talaga ang culture before you implement your own policies inside the classroom? So maybe strict kasi yung teacher sa English, yung bagong teacher sa English, maybe firm siya and strict with regards to policy, absent, no points, di ba? So you should make some arrangement with your students, especially yung mga high-performing students na naging absent sila during those days because they tend to help their parents. Okay. The second part is also very important because this is your personalized parang remedy, no, or yung techniques mo on how to tackle if this happens in your classroom. Okay? So, tama yung sinabi ng mga presenters, they mentioned about rewards. Okay? Bigyan ng rewards. Tama yan. Those are points. And then you can also consider making some modules, no? Just like now, di ba? You can give modules to your students. Whenever they're absent, you can still look into the lessons and do the task, no? So, para hindi sila behind. Okay? The third question is, ano ba yung third question from Nicole yung answering niyo is more on the relevance, no, of assessment, measurement, and evaluation. I think they're able to project saan yung measurement doon, saan yung evaluation at saka yung assessment. Although it's not literal with regards to the decision, no, or yung instructional decision ng teacher, hindi siya klaro. Pero nandoon yung evaluation with regards to the performance because the teacher gave a remark na low performing yung mga male students with regards to the English test. Right? So, wala ba tayong questions from the group? May concern si Ma'am Heidi Mercado. For group 1, ano bang concern mo, Ma'am Heidi? I think this is addressed for group 1. Mention about absenteeism. Do you want the presenter from group 1 to explain? Si Ma'am Fabi, I think, from group 1. Ma'am Fabi, nakamute ka. Ma'am Joy, nakamute ka.
Yes, sir. For Ma'am Heidi Mercado, um, we strongly believe, man God, na the differences in English. Ay, as a future, how would you address this kind of practice among students aside from what you have mentioned? So aside from giving them rewards, just like what Sir Lucero told us, we would conduct an environmental scanning. We would research more kasi kasi 'di ba yung scenario is that parang mga high performing students sila and bakit sila nag-a-absent. So maybe it's really it would be helpful na mag-conduct ng environmental scanning. We would check whether ano bang ginagawa nung before na teacher kasi substitute 'di ba si Miss Castillo, what are ano bang strategy, what kind of teaching approach did she implement in her class. So yun po.
Okay. Ma'am Nicole, you would like to add? Nakamute ka, Ma'am Nicole.
Okay, so we also mentioned absenteeism. As a future educator, we would address this kind of practice by ano by conducting ano they call this by conducting or like face to face talk to the student, and we would know will they how will they what are their problems and like that, sir.
Okay. So, of course, you have to ask your students bakit sila absent always on Fridays and Mondays, no? Then that's the time you can plan ano ba gagawin mo. So yung previous teacher actually is, yung sinabi ko kanina is, she's giving modules to the students, kay mga high performing kasi. But it's not mentioned in the scenario high performing, but in the true case, sa actual na incident, yung mga students are actually high performing. But you know what? This item is, it come out in a certain exam, no? So this will give you an idea on how to do it, no? So, module is one way. Kasi pag absent ng mga bata, they can still do their work even they are not in the classroom. Hindi sila behind. So, giving modules to students. Although it's an extra part na works as teacher, but it helps, of course, no? Okay, so I hope, Ma'am Heidi, we're able to address your question. Lagyan mo naman ng okay, ma'am, if na-address namin yung questions mo, ha? Any more questions? I think wala nang questions. Thank you kay ma'am. Thank you, Ma'am Christine Joy and Ma'am Nicole, for sharing your presentations and joining me in this virtual meet. Thank you so much.
Thank
Thank
you,
you, sir.
sir. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Okay. So let me proceed now to the next part, lesson 2, that talks about principles of high quality assessment. Okay. In this part, we talk about the different concepts now, or principles. The first principle is the clarity of learning targets. Clarity of learning targets, meaning it goes back with your learning objective. Dapat yung learning objective mo should be stated clearly. So paano ba siya state clearly? you make use of behavioral terms. Now, I hope you have read all these concepts. So, pag na-state mo siya clearly, meaning your assessment can be accurate and precise. Otherwise, pag not stated clearly, then there is no clear also assessment. So that's the basic, the first principle, clarity of learning targets. The second principle is appropriateness of assessment methods. In this context, when we talk about appropriateness, there are different categories, no? So establish mo muna yung objective mo. Dapat yung objective mo should be stated clearly. Tapos, that is the time you can determine the appropriate assessment methods. In the assessment methods that we mentioned, there are different categories. There is what we call selected response format, or written response or written instruments. Meron tayong selected response. These are basic. When we say selected response format, yung na mga test na may choices like multiple choice or false, matching type test, checklist, no? Because you select man from a response. Then we have also constructed response format. Under constructed response format, we have brief response, no? Brief constructed response, like short answer type test, or you can have also essay test. Then we have also under constructed response yung performance tasks or performance assessments. No, authentic yan, ha? And then you have also, of course, I mentioned already essays. No, these are examples. Oral questioning is also a brief construct. I mean, it's part of the constructed response format, yung oral questioning. So these are different assessment categories or assessment methods. Then there's also what we call observation and self-reports. Observation is basically done by the teacher, and self-reports is basically done by the students. Yung self-reports or self-assessment, yung sinabi ko kanina, this talks about metacognitions, no? Metacognitions or reflections. What you're doing in your wikis is actually part of self-assessment. Okay? Then, ano pa ba? So those are examples, no? Those are examples of or categories of assessment methods that you can use in your assessments. Now, of course, yung mga performance tasks or performance assessment at saka yung self-reports and observation, this will be discussed more in details sa CPE 106, right? So in CPE 105, we are much more focused on the cognitive part, assessing our students with regards to using objective tests, for instance. And another is, there's also what we call validity and reliability of the test. This is under properties of assessment methods, no? Yung practicality and efficiency at saka ethics, these are under the properties of assessment methods. Although yung validity and reliability of tests, these are not properties, but this helps, achieve the quality of your test. Okay. So, what is validity? Ano ba talaga ang validity of a test? Just give me a word. Meron siya mga words connected to validity. Okay, you can type in the chat box. Ano ba talaga ang validity? Just give me one word or a phrase on validity. Okay, you can start typing now. Anybody? Wala pang response. Ano ba talagang validity? What is validity of a test? Give an answer. A word or a phrase. As I mentioned, when you talk about validity and reliability, this helps you achieve the quality of your test. Pag sinabing validity, usually, pag valid yung test, it is assumed that it's reliable. However, if yung test is reliable, it is not necessarily valid. So ano ba yung validity? Okay, there is what we call trusted, considerable, connected, okay, eligibility, accuracy, legitimacy. Okay. I think you're able to mention that one, no? So, yung mga connected words like appropriateness, correctness, meaningfulness, usefulness. Okay, you mentioned about accuracy. Tama yan. Now, these are terms that you can connect to validity. So, when you say validity of a test, it refers to the ability of the test to measure what it intends to measure. For example, you're trying to prepare a test where the content is more on measuring math skills in grade 5. Now, if you use the test in grade 2, it is no longer valid. Why? Because content-wise, meron na siyang issue, di ba? So, test content evidence no longer valid. With regards to the level of performance or referring to response process evidence, no longer valid. Why? Because the intention of the test is for grade 5, not for grade 2. So these are things that you need to consider. Ha? So dapat yung test mo has the ability to measure what it intends to measure. So if it is true, then your test is valid. Now let's talk about reliability. Ano bang reliability of a test? Reliability, sabi natin kanina, if test is reliable, it is not necessarily valid. Pero kung valid siya, it is assumed reliable. So ano ba talaga ang reliability of a test? May nag-mention na appropriate. Appropriate is refers to validity of the test. Legit. Okay. Evidence. What can you say about the evidence? What else? I think it has, we mentioned that one in the resources. Ano ba talaga ang reliability of a test? What else? Di ba na-mention natin, reliability refers to consistency or stability of the test. May nag-mention ba? Dependability. May nag-mention ng consistency. Tama yon. Consistency or stability of the test. When you say consistency or stability of the test, there are 3 techniques now or methods that you can use. We have test-retest reliability, parallel forms reliability, or you can use internal consistency reliability. Ang idea dito is, when you conduct your test, you get the results, tapos i-reconduct mo yung test for a certain period of time, you get the results. Compare mo yung dalawang results. If the result is almost the same, then your test is reliable. Okay? So that's where consistency comes in. The result yields almost the same. Okay, I hope nakuha niyo yun ang idea sa reliability of the test. Okay, sometimes when you conduct your research, papakuha yung reliability of your instrument. So, imo siyang i-conduct twice, or you can use internal consistency reliability wherein sa internal consistency reliability, conduct mo lang siya once yung test, tapos i-divide mo yung items or yung test, no, based on the test takers into half. Okay? So, compare mo yung results sa both half to see the reliability of the test. Now, let's move on to practicality and efficiency. When you say practicality and efficiency, this is part of the properties now of a quality, of high quality assessment. So there are elements that we need to consider in practicality and efficiency. We have familiarity with the method, time required, complexity of administration, ease of scoring, ease of interpretation, and cost. Okay. So, ano ba ang familiarity with the method? Make sure when you conduct your test, familiar ka sa method na or sa test na yan, no? Otherwise, it will be hard time analyzing or interpreting the test kasi hindi mo siya familiar. So it is advised, it is very practical and efficient if you use a certain method or assessment method na familiar ka. Okay? Time required is also part of practicality and efficiency. If you remember yung may table tayo doon sa resources natin, yung mga time, suggested time, no? For a certain test. The question is, how much time will your test taker spend in a certain item? For example, you're using extended essay test. Per item, ilang bang minutes mas spend ng bata? Doon sa table natin, it's suggested na 30 to 45 minutes for one item. Kasi extended essay, diba? So, mas longer yung answer nila. Now, if you're giving 5 extended essays, let's say, one item, 30 minutes. Tapos, binigyan mo na siya ng finish that one in 1 hour. 5 extended essays times 30 minutes, diba? Supposed to be 2 hours and a half. Dapat ang ibigay mo. But normally, we give only 1 hour. So definitely, the student cannot finish the extended essays. So malabo. So there is no longer practicality and efficiency in that case. So consider mo yung time. How much time the student will spend each item in a test. So the best way to do it, i-try mo yung test muna before giving it to your students. So if you're able to finish that test in, let's say, per item, makuha mo siya in 2 minutes, times 2 mo yan. Bigyan mo lang 4 minutes. Okay? You're giving it to your students. Iba yung mag-answer yung teacher at saka yung students. So always times 2 mo yan. Okay? So consider time in giving your test. So how much time the student will spend per item. Then we have also complexity of administration or ease in administering your test. Make sure when you float your test to your students, wala na silang questions. Otherwise, pag may questions sila, then there is no ease in administration of your test. So dapat, ang instruction mo doon sa test should be clear and specific, right? Para wala na silang question along the way. You cannot finish your test if a lot of your students have questions along the way, no? So make sure there is ease in the administration of your test. Make sure your instruction are very clear, understandable in the context of your students, and it should be specific, no, and comprehensive. Nandun na lang. If you're giving them a match type test, dapat klaro yung instruction, where do you have to write the answer, ano ba gagawin nila sa column A saka sa column B. So, dapat nandoon yun lahat. Right? Then, ease in scoring. No? Scoring is very important. For objective test, madali lang siya, di ba? Madali lang yung pag-score sa objective test. However, if you're using subjective measurements like essay test, ano mo ba score? That is why we make use of rubric, no, as our scoring method. So dapat nandoon yung element of ease in scoring your test. That's being practical and efficient. Otherwise, if you're giving them essay test, tapos wala kang rubric, ang mangyari mga students is that, let's say you have 40 pupils in your class, times, let's say you're giving 3-item easy test, multiply mo yan, 40 times 3. That's how you check your test papers. Remember, time is not a commodity to us as teachers because we have many sided tasks. Daghan kay tag tasks to do. So dapat practical yung scoring mo. So, I could remember, general observation to ha, I could remember there was one teacher, nagpa-AC test siya. Tapos, sabi niya, 1,000 words pa, no? Yung content ng essay. Tapos, let's say, meron siyang 2 items times 1,000 words. When the students submitted their outputs, their essays, daming papers, di ba? Daming papers, daming i-check. So, ang mangyari, the teacher will just look at the penmanship. Magandang penmanship, 100. Pag pangit yung penmanship, low score. So, hindi na siya practical. It's no longer practical and efficient. So, consider ease of scoring your test. Second is interpretation. Dapat yung interpretation of the test should be easy. Okay? For objective test, madali lang siya, right? Pag you have 50 item test, alam mo yung cutoff. Tapos, pag-interpret mo, okay, na-meet ba yung target which is 75% or wala? So, if naabot niya yung cutoff score, alam mo na yon ang interpretation. Now, if you're using rubric, the interpretation of your test comes in with your descriptors. I am also sharing my rubrics, right? Alam niyo paano mag-get ng 5 in your submissions. So, tingnan mo yung descriptions sa rubric na yan. You know how to get your 5. Pwede mo siya i-perfect, no? You can easily get a high scores in each performance by just looking at the rubric. Okay? Share mo talaga yung scoring mo doon sa students at the same time. Okay. So, cost is also important. It's also an element in practicality efficiency. For most tests, like objective tests, the cost is very low. However, if you're using a performance assessments, maybe doon yung cost, no? Because sometimes if you require students to submit projects is actually a performance-based assessment. It's authentic. Tapos yung project may be costly. So you need to consider the cost. Baka yung cost po is no longer practical and efficient, right? So dapat ko consider mo yung cost. You can use low-cost materials or you can advise your students to make use of recycled materials also. These are low-cost materials. Okay? So cost is also an element of practicality and efficiency. Then let's talk about ethics. Ethics, sabi nila, somebody said, fairness is an ethical issue. So pag sinabing ethics, dapat there's fair, no, in assessment. So yung ethics, there are also other elements that you need to consider in ethics, no. One is student knowledge of learning targets and assessment. This is where transparency comes in. Yung sinabi ko kanina, you need to be transparent to your students. You need to share also your scoring to your students. This is just like what I did to you. I am sharing to you my rubrics so that you will know how to get high score in that certain task. Okay? So, nandoon yung transparency. And another concept of transparency is when you give assessment or test to your students, dapat alam ni students kung ano yung content sa test, ano ang type sa test, no? And how many hours or minutes you're gonna spend in that certain test. Okay, that's part of transparency. Then there's what we call opportunity to learn. When you say opportunity to learn, you should give ample time for students to learn the concepts before giving the assessment. Normally, ang mangyari natin after a certain discussion, intensive discussion, bigyan kagad ng test. The question is, meron bang absorption of the concept yung bata doon? Meron mas lang ample time to prepare, no? To learn or opportunity to learn. So, importante yun. Then we have also prerequisite knowledge and skills. We need to enable students to connect new information with previous knowledge. The activity that you do in your sharing, diba? I would ask you, share your previous experience, share your prior knowledge of this. This actually part of that, no? Connecting previous or prior knowledge with a current concept. In this way, we try to connect or bridge the gap. So we're trying to bridging the gap. That's an example, no? Kana yung sharing activity is an example of this. We're trying to establish, connection between your prior experience or prior concepts and the current one. Okay, so we are trying to address now the learning gaps. It's just like student from grade 1 or yung pupils from grade 1 moving to grade 2, di ba? There are intended skills in that certain level, so grade 1. Meron ding intended skills in grade 2, right? Wait for a while. I have to sorry, interruption, nag-lowbat ko. Okay, let me continue. Sorry for interruption. So, yung mga skills intended for that grade level, example, ang yung target natin 75%, na dapat 75 mastery level makuha ng bata sa grade 1. And then, they move to grade 2. But yung grade 2 teacher, hindi niya alam ano ba yung mastery level ng bata, di ba? Nakuha ba niya yung 75% or less than 75%? Assuming less than 75%, 50% lang yung nakuha ng bata. So definitely, when they move to grade 2, meron na siyang learning gaps, right? So if the teacher will not use or connect the prior concepts or prior knowledge of the student to the current one, then di alam ni teacher nga meron parang learning gaps. So definitely along the way, meron ding deficiency yung bata in learning in that certain level. It's just like in CPE 105 is a prerequisite to CPE 106, right? So yung learning mo dito can be used in your preparation for CPE 106. So that's to address the learning gaps. That's why we use to connect prior and the current one. Okay, next is avoid stereotyping. Okay, I think na-mention ni kanina sa discussion before ang yung mga common stereotypes are racial, sexual, gender remarks, no? Now, common notion natin, especially sa stereotyping, if a teacher coming, for example, a teacher coming from the city or yung teacher in the city, common notion nila, yung mga students coming from provincial schools, yung expectations very low. Diba? That's an example of a stereotyping. So, taga-provincial schools man din sila, low performing ni. That's our common stereotyping. Do not do that, no? That is not part of fairness. That's not part of ethics. So, do not underestimate your students, whether they came from hinterland schools or provincial schools or from city schools. Do not underestimate your students. Next is avoid bias in assessment. There are forms of bias, no? Offensiveness and unfair penalization. Now, when we talk about offensiveness, dapat hindi distracting yung test mo with regards to the individual takers. No? For example, you give an AC test about traffic congestion, portraying traffic enforcers as corrupt. Now, what if may mga students or mga test takers na yung parents nila are actually traffic enforcers? So, naging offensive yung test item mo to those students. So, maybe their answers is affected by the offensiveness of your test item. So, try to avoid that, no? Try to avoid that. And unfair penalization of the test, no? This harms the performance of your students. Especially kung example, yung students mo are not familiar with the content, no? For example, si educational technology teacher, bigay siya ng test about how wearable technology can impact various professions. Now, of course, yung mga students in the high income at sa, and they have these wearable gadgets. Of course, they can elaborate more on the answer compared to low income students na wala talagang wearable gadgets at saka walang experience, hindi alam yung ano ba yung wearable gadgets. So they can no longer elaborate they cannot expand their answers. So that's unfair, right? Unfair, tapos penalize mo yung bata because low ilang concepts with regards to that. So try to avoid those kind of items in your test. Then, accommodating special needs is very important. Now, in our classroom, mix in yung classroom natin, we do not know yet ano ba talaga ang mga learning needs ng mga bata. Especially kung ang bata may special needs, no? I could remember when I was a teacher in the public school. Di ba sa public school, if you still remember sa yung elementary, sa chalkboard, meron tayong nakalagay, standards for oral reading, standards for silent reading. Okay? I don't know if you have that one in your classrooms, but during my time, we have those different standards. Naka-poster yun. Diba? And here comes one teacher. Sabi niya, all right, today class, we're gonna have a silent reading. Get your books and follow the standards in silent reading. Usually in standard, diba? You sit erect, hold your books with your two hands, read with your eyes only, and so on. Those are the standards. And here comes one pupil in the classroom na while nag-roam around si teacher, nakita niya yung bata na this actually, this is the book, no? Nakaling yung bata, nakaganon. Parang natutulog si pupil. And the teacher was so angry. Sabi niya, I said, follow the standards of silent reading. So, walang nagawa si pupil, kinuha yung book, tapos nagbasa. And the teacher actually observing this pupil. Sabi niya, tingnan natin kung maka-answer ka ba sa questions ko later on. So, after the silent reading, the teacher throws a lot of questions to this pupil. Definitely, the pupil wasn't able to answer the question. Galit na naman si teacher. Okay? And after a week, nalaman ni teacher na may problema pala sa vision yung bata. Ang vision ng bata is peripheral vision. He can see in this side, not here, not sa front, sa side lang. That's why, nag-lean yung bata because actually the child is reading like that, no? Okay? So, standards for silent reading doesn't work anymore because you have to cater the special needs of your students. Right? For example, if you have students who have low vision inside the classroom, maybe you can prepare a test for that particular students nga large print, no? Kung halimbawa yung font size mo is very small, okay lang yan sa mga regular. What about yung my special needs? So you can use large print. Okay? Although doon sa test exemplars, hindi siya visible, di ba? But in your checklist, later on, Sir Sainan will be presenting the sample outputs on lesson 2. Okay, this is where you apply also the different principles in checking the test exemplars. Okay, so always address the needs, special needs of your students. So dapat yung test mo, not kung isa lang yung may visual problem, then yun lang, prepare one test paper for that particular student. Kung large print siya, bigyan mo siya ng large print, right? Okay. Okay, so those are the different elements, no, under ethics, and I hope you have learned something. No, you can connect now the concept that you have read in our sources. Okay, so I think I'm done with the different principles of high quality assessment. So let's have now Sir Sainan for the presentation of output. Now, if you have again questions, you can place that one in the chat box. Okay, so Sir Sainan, Ready na si sir?
So good morning.
Okay, sir. Take it away.
Good morning, everyone. So today I will be discussing or sharing what I observed during the critique I made on the teacher-made test. So I chose test exemplar number 1, which is a test in English. So I will be explaining on the checklist and share my ideas during critiquing. So this is the checklist provided for critiquing. As you can see, we have we have certain indicators and guide questions upon critiquing. Um, we have first clarity of targets, appropriateness or alignment of assessment methods, content validity, practicality and efficiency, fairness and ethics. So, so each has guide questions to help in critiquing the teacher-made test. If so, it is precise or have the principles of high quality assessment. So first so starting with clarity of targets, we have the guide question, is the learning target clearly stated? So my answer was yes. As I can see at the end of the test exemplar, the learning target was mentioned, or what skill is to be used by the students when answering the certain number. So as you can see, this is the table, uh, the learning target perhaps. Next is appropriateness, alignment of assessment methods. So as I can remember, there were 7 category of assessment methods. Selected and constructed response, performance task, observation and self-report, oral questioning, essay test, and basic constructed. Uh, so in a multiple choice test, usually selected response assessment method is to be used, although there are many assessment methods that are present upon reading that learning target. But overall, the learning target is somehow aligned to selective responsive method, to selected response method. So next is content validity. Is there a match between the test items and the learning objective? So I answered yes, because similarities occur both situation. It was clearly stated on what skill is to be used by the student and what number it corresponds to. As you can see in the first column, it says the learning target for each test items, and at the third column, it is the number of item to which the learning target on column 1 corresponds to. Next is practicality and efficiency. Is the test easy to administer, score, and interpret? So as I said, the assessment method used in selected response method, which makes the teacher assess and score a great deal of content quickly, the multiple choice tests are objective and efficient. So the test example were multiple choice, although others were mixed, there were essays and fill in the blanks. No, next is fairness. So, is there a potential stereotype threat in the test items? Is there a potential offensive item in the test? Is the test to or accommodate special needs? So, I've read each of the questions in the test exemplar, but not one is sensitive or offensive for me. There were clearly no potential stereotyping. Unless you're offended when someone asks about your age. So next is ethics. So is the test was the test requires the test takers to answer sensitive issues? As far as I know, there were no sensitive issues that needs to be answered in the test. Ay. Ay, so that would be all my opinion on the test exemplar. And thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good day.
Okay, fantastic job, Sir Sainan. Tama ba pag-pronounce ko sa iyong name, sir? Sainan, sir,
Yes,
no?
sir. Sign answer.
Okay. Okay, that's good, sir. You're able to present comprehensively the answers on based on the checklist, right? So, any questions with regards to that?
Naku po.
Any questions from the group with regards to the checklist? So, Sir Sina is using test exemplar number 1. Tama ba, sir, no? Test exemplar
Yes,
number
sir.
1.
Correct, sir.
Okay. Now, yung pinakita ni Sir kanina, yung may table, mayroon siyang learning competencies or objectives, tapos mayroong number of items is intended for that learning objective. That's an example of a table of specification. Okay, so this exercise can be connected when you make your TOS, your table of specification, under sa planning sa test. No, I think it's in lesson 4 because lesson 3 is more on types of tests. So it's in lesson 4. So you can connect this exercise later on. So may idea na kung paano gawin yung table of specifications. Okay. So I think there was no questions. So however, if may pahabol kayo na questions, you can still type it in the chat box. So let me proceed na lang directly so that we can finish up. My next, let me go now to my presentation. Thank you, Sir Sainan, so much, and for presenting your outputs. Okay. So let me proceed now to other matters. Okay. So ano ba itong other matters? Number 1 is the learning contract. No, I have seen a lot of you already signed the learning contract. This is very important, and I would like to inform everyone that CP 105 and even in my CP 106, this is actually our course is a model course for the College of Education. So kailangan natin yung learning contract, and I will submit also the learning contract to the college dean kasi he tried to verify, with regards to the learning contract. So I hope yung wala pa nakasign sa learning contract, please do it so. And we need that one badly, Then the second, the next virtual meet, January 8th. But before that one, let me go to the end of classes. Based on our calendar, the end of classes will be on January 8th, 2021. So, end na lahat ng courses doon. So, because we need to prepare also for the grading, So, end of classes. However, yung end ng final exam date is January 15. Pero yung class, we cannot no longer do classes now or virtual classes after January 8. That is why nakaschedule tayo for the next virtual meet January 8. No, same date, the same day of the end of classes. Now, there are lessons nga ma-open pa sa by January. That is why I need the consensus of the group that we are going to open the other lessons within December. Would that be okay? So kindly type yes in the chat box if it's okay. So I need the consensus of the group. Kasi limited na tayo sa time. The end of classes is January 8. Then, of course, I will be selecting again presenters from the other groups. Yung nag-present kayo ng group, hindi ko na sa i-select, but I will be selecting from the other groups to present also their outputs. Okay? It might not be all. I'm sorry because malaki tayo na class. It might not be all, but I'll be selecting. All right? So now I hope you will also join us in our final virtual meet on January 8. So please type yes if okay kayo na i-open natin ang kanang all the lessons within December. Although may vacation tayo sa December, Christmas breaks tayo sa December, but I believe you can still spend an hour or two, just to look into the different activities para we have preparations. We can prepare for January 8th final virtual meeting. Okay. And I nag-yes. Thank you, Ma'am Chine. Thank you, Sir Joseph. Sir Joseph. Yes, Ma'am Hosnefa, thank you. Si Ma'am Gina. Okay, marami na nag-yes. Please, lahat nandito, please type yes kung okay sa inyo lahat, ha? Para may consensus tayo. I also have a record how many did say yes. Okay, that's good. So, open natin lahat ang lesson this December. Then, at least you can just look into the yung overview ng lesson. There are two main outputs in this. Number one is your test construction, no? Yung planning sa test, which is in lesson 4. Then of course, yung last lesson, which is actually application of your TOS, that is constructing your test. Okay, so thank you. Thank you so much sa lahat ng nag-yes. Okay, so open natin. The Christmas break based on the schedule will start December 19 to January 3. Yun ang Christmas break, right? So during this time, you can still open the lesson and of course, chat with your group mates and do your work, no? Not maybe lahat-lahat, pero at least meron kayong time. My question si Ma'am Liza, sir, mag-set food kag deadline. No, ma'am, wala na tayong deadline, ma'am. I don't even give deadlines, right? As long as we can finish that one before or on, or I said before lang siguro January 8 because January 8 is our presentation. No? That is our final presentation of our virtual meet. So I hope matapos natin lahat. Right? So, did I answer your question, Ma'am Liza Marie? Type okay lang, ma'am. Okay if it's addressed, Ma'am Liza. Okay. And then, of course, ang last day, final exam is January 15. Okay. So, nakaschedule na. It's, basically, it's a 50-item test, multiple choice yung type ng test ko. And basically, I'll just get, portions on each lesson sa test. Okay. I need to give you a final exam because remember this is a board course. So dapat ma-train kayo on how to, of course, answer, no? Yung board exam test natin is multiple choice din. So at least you can answer that one. And normally it's 1 to 2 hours yung time allotted for the test. Okay, may instruction ako doon na once you start your test, dapat i-finish mo siya. So, wag mong i-click yung start unless you are ready to take the test. Okay? So, ang test is intended for 1 day. But once you start, you're given around 1 hour and a half or 2 hours to finish the test. Okay? 50 items, I think that's too much. The hours is too long for you to finish. So, enough na siguro yung 2 hours or 1 hour and a half for 50 item test. So, this will be done in January 15, 2021. Of course, I will also be giving a survey. This is important because as I've mentioned before, as I've said, yung course natin is actually a model course for the College of Education. So, kailangan natin yung survey. Ano ba talaga yung experience niyo with regards to the course delivery of CPE 105. So this will be open January 13. Kailangan niyo siya i-take ang survey because the survey is a prerequisite to your final exam. Hindi mo open yung final exam mo unless na-take mo yung survey. So unahin mo yung survey, tapos automatically ma-open yung final exam in your part. Okay? So I already mentioned the important dates. Christmas break, December 19 to January 3. End of classes, January 8. Pag end of classes, lahat ng learning resources will be closed, no? Except for the final exam and the survey. Then, last day of exam, January 15. The lacking of grades for graduating, wala man tayong graduating dito. For the graduating is January 21. And for non-graduating, the lacking of grades will be on January 22. That's why after the final exam, I had around 1 week, no, to do some of mga submissions niyo, checking of your submissions, right? Now, you can always monitor your standing. No, if you notice doon sa muli natin meron tayong grade book, di ba? So open mo na yung grade book, tingnan mo yung mga scores niyo doon. So meron tayong letter grade, no, doon. So the letter grade, pag na-kompleto na lahat ng mga resources or submissions niyo, that will appear also, the same letter grade will appear in your grade report sa My IIT. Okay? That's why you can look the progress of your or status of your performance dun sa gradebook sa Molly. Okay, if you have any questions, then you can message me right away. Okay, so those are the things. In the other matters, if you have any questions, kindly type in the chat box before we end. From our resource persons, from Christian Joy, Ma'am Nicole, Sir Sainan, meron kayong question, sir? Or would like to say something to our audience?
Present ko, sir.
Wala na, sir.
Wala na.
And so far, sir.
None so far. Okay, so wala nang questions from the group. Kung na kayong pabol questions, tapos nag-close na yung virtual meeting natin, you can still post the questions doon sa Google Classroom or doon sa help board natin sa Molly, alright? So I think we need to end, and it's 12 o'clock already. Thank you so much for participating in this second virtual meeting. Thank you, resource persons, Ma'am Christine Joy, Fabi, Sir Sainan, Ma'am Nicole. Thank you so much for joining me in the virtual meeting. Thank you also
Thank you,
for
sir.
your group.
Thank you,
Okay.
sir.
Okay, bye-bye. Thank you so much.
Bye, sir. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.